This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, November the 22nd, 2022, episode 410. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your weekly source for the latest information in and around the video game industry, with our common sense political takes sprinkled in there as well. My name is Nick Craig. You can check out my antics at Nicholas M. Craig on Twitter. You can also check out my day job, which is hosting Wilmington's Morning News, 3 hours of live local talk radio each and every weekday. I'm actually a couple days off this week, hot dog. Find all that over at nickcraig.com. And if you need to catch any portion of this show, or maybe want to check out where you can download the podcast and do all of that, you'll find that on our website, which is infectionpodcast.com. But I can't steer this ship alone. Joining me, as he does, with a what is that? That's not BioShock. What game is this behind you, Brian?
This is New Vegas.
Nah, Fallout. Yeah, okay, all right.
Fallout New Vegas. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So I was, I'm a poser. I don't really know what I'm talking about. Brian with an I Aldridge joining us. Hey, Brian. Hope you're doing well.
I am doing well, and if you want to find me, of course, as he said, you can get me at Boise Computer on Twitter, at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, Truth Social, and probably a few other places. But of course, if you go to my website, bioprotect.com, there are some contact places for there. And then our website, infectionpodcast.com, where if you join our server on Discord, there's a great place for you to, for instance, post news links. There's the news channel. Maybe there's a topic that you think we've missed, or you want to put a little bit of your own information into. Just go ahead and post that in there, and we'll get a look at that before the live show starts. Also, if you're interested in playing any ARK, we got 11 ARK servers going, because they're doing the ARK server event, kind of when we started playing years and years ago. I'm doing the Thanksgiving event with the crazy turkeys that just slaughter you. We got our servers going there. We have a Conan Exiles server running as well. I boosted the experience and the resource gathering, everything on that. So if people want to play around, build some bases, and see some of the cool mods that we put in there and RP things, there's a lot going on in that. And then if you want to watch the live show, do that through Twitch or YouTube. We do stream that live while recording the show, and then also it's available after the fact there. If you're going to want to listen to the show in the podcast form, you're going to have to wait till we record the show, and then we upload that right after the show is done. And that's at the lower right-hand side. A lot of different ways and platforms that you can listen to the show. If you are listening to the show, the nice thing is you can then click on the particular episode's link or the show notes, and on there there's a video player, an audio player, and then all the links that we refer to throughout that live show. And so perhaps we are playing a video that you want to listen to, or you're listening to but you want to watch, just go ahead and jump into the show notes, click on that video, and you'll be able to see what we were watching during the live show. There's everything, source material, everything that we reference is right there. If you want to support the show, you can go to the top where it's support, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yeah, we had a whole bunch of folks come in with support last week, some bits and some subscriptions thrown in here, so greatly appreciated as always. All right, Brian, kind of a odd news week. We've got a Thanksgiving, at least here in the United States, coming up in a few days, so that'll definitely hamper the news for next week. A lot of folks, it's generally getting closer to the holidays, and this has always been kind of the slow time, at least what we've determined, kind of the slow time in the video game industry is right around Thanksgiving until the first of the year, as a lot of folks bank up their PTO and will take 2.5 or 3 weeks off between now and the end of the year. So kind of an odd news week, but there's still a lot going on, specifically over in China, where they might be dealing with some pretty big problems in their largest gaming market, which is actually mobile. Yeah. Yeah.
And they've seen the first major decline in 2 decades in their mobile market there. And that's something where an overall slide in revenue of 2.5% for video game software and services revenue has been predicted on all platforms. That's with console, PC, but this is something where they've had a 5.5 for mobile. So double what they're predicting for console and PC. They're seeing a 5.5 year-on-year, which is its first retraction in 2 decades there. So this is something that, first of all, they've put so many restrictions, and there haven't been new licenses for the people to be able to produce video games in China. They've had all of these different restrictions they put in because of COVID. First people started playing games with COVID, but then they started putting all these ridiculous rules. They have these things that will scan your face if you're under 18 and detect who you are and then allow you to play for a certain amount of time. It's pretty crazy what they've done during this to try to combat what they call, the youth being corrupted. And so one thing, though, is they said that since 2017, the PC market has grown for the first time in China. So kind of weird that it's switching. It's switching around a little bit. They are rising a little bit in the PC market. The mobile market's going down. I would assume part of that is probably because it's a little easier to bypass some of the firewalls and everything else on a PC than it is on the mobile. And with their lockdown phones, they can restrict a lot easier a mobile phone.
I'm wondering
harder to do on a PC as well.
I'm wondering if part of this is also China's got this ridiculous zero COVID policy where they want zero cases of a virus that doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot, but that's what they want. So I wonder if you're seeing an uptick in PC gaming because people aren't leaving their homes. And the reason mobile gaming was so popular in China, at least in the in the heavy population centers of China, is because a lot of folks were gaming on the go, Brian. They would game on their way to work. They'd game on their, I don't know how the work structure is in China, but you'd see in the pictures that you see online, you've got guys sitting, mass transit is still very, very popular. So trains and buses, just every person on there, on their phone playing a game. And if you're not going out as much anymore, or maybe, you're constantly being sent home from work or told to work from home or whatever, and if that's a possibility, I wonder if that's just causing more PC gaming to take place because, let's be honest, there's more variety on PC than there is on mobile. The quality of games is just better because you have more technology available and more literal resources available to do it. So maybe this is because of some of their own things that they're trying to do internally.
Well, that's the thing is when you sit there and manipulate the market in the way that they try to do, you're going to have uncertainty. You think that you're creating certainty, right? By enforcing and saying you're going to do this. The problem is people don't always react in the way that you expect, and so you create more uncertainty. It's easier to predict normal human behavior because people tend to do certain things. But then when you throw uncertainty into the mix with it, who knows what's going to happen? Then it becomes more random. And I think that it didn't react how they expected. For instance, China's Tencent has now started laying people off. And this is the company that we talked about months ago, just going bonkers. One of the biggest tech companies in the world, buying companies left and right. And now they're turning around and announcing layoffs there. Now, here's some more that's been happening in the past month or so. All of a sudden here recently, I think to combat that, this is their response. Chinese tech giant Tencent has been granted their first video game license in 18 months. So China has realized that, first of all, these companies were starting to go offshore, deal with America more. That's going to cause corruption in there, where they start viewing the free market as a better thing, not what they want. So now they're turning around and starting to allow licenses for video games again. So Tencent, the biggest one, granted another a license for this. Also, they have announced that, remember they were talking about how the video games were corrupting the children. They were allowing 1 hour. Well, they have now had a change of heart there, and they're saying that there's a report from the State Affiliated Gaming Association is saying that they're going to kind of ease off of that crackdown. They're claiming that the kids, this article title says, is kick the habit of video games. I think it comes down to money. Communism and all these principles that they stand on in communism only go so far until China, the ones who rule everything, start losing money. Then all of a sudden, these morals go out the window. It's only when they're trying to control people that communism, will stand on these high grounds. But as soon as it hits the pocket of the country that's enforcing communism, then you see here they're now willing to back off. They're starting to allow video game licenses again. They're going to start backing off of all of these restrictions, for kids that are under 18.
I found
nothing was leading up to this. There was no hint that this was going to happen.
There's an interesting stat in here from the China Game Industry Group Committees. I don't know how accurate these numbers are. Take that for what it's worth. But it found that 70% of Chinese minors, and I presume it's the same, their definition of minor is the same, so under 18 years old, now play less than 3 hours of video games a week. A week.
Yep. Well, they're not allowed to.
Well, they're not allowed. Well, and that's not necessarily. There is some restrictions, but I guess it comes down to the point, Brian, where if you make it so hard to do and restrict it so heavily, people just stop doing it. That's the goal of restrictions. That's the tale as old as time. And compared to what this is in the United States, the number is probably 70% in the other way, if not higher, in the United States of minors that play video games for more than 3 hours a week. So obviously their clampdown, if we believe these numbers, their clampdowns and their impacts, which restricted people under the age of 18 years old to only play games for 1 hour a day on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So even with those restrictions in place, you've got 70% that are playing less than those 3 hours that they even have access to. So that's pretty remarkable.
Well, go to that second article or the last article in that list, and there is a tweet that shows the stocks of all of these companies related to this tech. And I want to show you what I think this is really about. And it would be interesting to see is if the lawmakers made some investments prior to making this announcement. Just look at how they've jumped up. I mean, you've got a 25% increase in Archosaurus games. XD is 16.5. Alibaba is 11.17. CMGE Technology Group 10% increase. It's just they're all going up, and you can see the graphs there. They just spike. NetEase, it's up quite a bit. Tencent is up quite a bit. This is in response to this announcement. They are now making money in the video game market. They tanked it, and I feel like then you have these rich and powerful people in the country buying these stocks because they know they're going to reverse it. They reverse it, and now they're all rich again. Communism, isn't that great?
Does this not? And for China, what they were trying to do. Let me be clear here. Let me prerequisite this conversation. I'm not advocating for Chinese-style lockdowns or anything like that. China's goal was they felt that video games were corrupting the youth. In one of these articles, they call it social opium, which is pretty funny. So that was their goal, was to try and make it so that children in a communist society where they're not encouraged to actually strive for anything in their life because at the end of the day, you're under the boot of the government. That's the inherent problem here. China seemed to think that video games were the cause of that. In fact, it was their own policies. So they restricted it and made it so hard to play video games or restricted it so much that people just stopped. Obviously, they overshot their mark because their goal was not to destroy their own video game industry. I don't think, but that's
what was happening.
That is exactly what has happened. And it wasn't just this. They put a freeze on. They essentially stopped they haven't allowed almost new video games in that country in almost 18 months. They have had so little games go through whatever sort of committee process that they have to in China. They've almost completely locked themselves out of the worldwide gaming sphere. I mean, really, it's been quite remarkable to see, and obviously somebody, and I don't know who, makes these decisions or what brain trust makes these decisions, but they've obviously come to the reality here that they overshot their mark and they've done some serious damage to some huge companies that are incredibly important for the future of China's goal, which is taking over the world conversation.
Well, and this is something, here's the quote. They posted an article, and it was titled, Deeply Exploring the Value of Electronic Games Industry is an opportunity we can't miss. Because one thing, I don't think they realize, if you're trying to propagandize and you're trying to control the minds of people, what better way than through technology and through gaming?
Yeah,
Subliminal messaging. By affecting the culture, you can influence change. And if you cut that out, you're taking away that tool. We see it constantly in what we talk about on a daily basis. Let's talk really quickly about some Riot things, because Riot is owned by China now. And Riot, if you look at what they're doing versus what China does, they're very opposite, because they try to push a very different standard here than they do in China. First of all, they've announced a women's standalone women's League of Legends team.
Riot is owned by Tencent, correct? 100%.
It's owned by Tencent. Yes, so it's a Chinese-owned firm. Mm-hmm. And the publisher says it wants to promote diversity and inclusion in the esports community. I don't see them ever doing that in China, anywhere. Yeah. Do you ever see them saying anything like that in China? They only say it here, where they say the opposite types of things there.
Because
which is fine.
It's hot to do it here. It's a hot, trendy thing to do, and you can get a lot of great PR from it.
And I don't mind them making a women's only league, but the problem is, don't prop it up and get mad if people don't show interest.
Well,
just like the women's NBA here, people get mad that they don't get paid as much, but they bring in one 1/100th or less of what the men's league does.
So, in terms of interest, I'm glad you brought that up, because I did a little bit of digging into this. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. This thing was published about this tournament was announced about 30 days ago, and it actually takes place later this month. It's November 26th and 27th is when the full event takes place, but some of the earlier brackets actually start here in just like in 2 days. So there are slots for 64 people in this bracket system, the way that they've got it broken up. So there's 64 matches, 64 teams that will take place. As of right now, with 80 hours left to sign up, Brian, there are only 55 people registered. And that's assuming 100% of the people registered actually show up and play, which we know for an online tournament, you'd be lucky to get maybe 80% of your respondents to show up. So here you've got a tournament that is supposedly for women only, which obviously there's no interest in, because there's not even enough registrants to fill up the bracket. And out of these 55 people, let's say only 40 of them or 45 of them show up. Now you have, it's so ridiculous to try and push something like this.
They're trying to force it. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Obviously, nobody is asking for a women's only tournament. There's, with all of the people, how many people play League of Legends on a daily basis? I mean, what is the League of Legends player count? Let's see. They estimate, according to this report out in September, they estimate that they have 115 million active users. Excuse me, 180 million active users on the platform. 65 million monthly players that are playing League of Legends.
Yeah.
How can they not
and you can't
fill
get
60? 65.
It says 60 slots. Okay,
65 slots.
Yeah.
And so that just goes to show you that not that we hate women in gaming, and not that women shouldn't be allowed to play video games, but a female-only tournament is not what people are asking for, obviously.
Yeah.
If they were, the slots would be filled.
Now, here's an interesting thing that they put in that registration form. It says player registration will include gender verification in collaboration with DIVE, an organization promoting gender diversity in esports, who already assist in EMEA Operation in Riot Games Valorant Game Changers tournament. So I don't know what that means. Now, because if you watch that documentary on what is a woman, how are you going to verify? I mean, how are you going to answer that question and actually say these are women, first of all? And are you going to say, okay, you don't qualify as the proper gender? There's no way they're going to
do that.
Or they're going to have a bunch of people that were born as males that identify as a female gender here playing against these girls. I thought the point was to have women, females, who are a smaller portion of the community playing to get exposure, right? Well, there's plenty of the transsexual community that's currently already playing video games. That's not an underrepresented community playing video games. The transgender world is there's a high percentage of were men that played video games before, and so you can't tell me that that's going to make this be more representative of anything, because having actual genetically born females playing this tournament would be the thing that was unique and would create diversity. The other form of it, of having men, regardless of what they do after they're born, is not diversity.
Well, Subdivisions brings up a great point in chat, and he says, why in the world would gender make any difference in the video game world? Well, simply because, because there is a difference between men and women, I know. But see, a tournament like this just proves that they also believe that that's the case, Brian. Because if truly men and women were on the most equal of playing fields, like the left wants to claim, and there's no differences, even though that men are inherently better at certain things and women are inherently better at certain things, even though there are differences in genders, they need to have a gender-only tournament, and it goes to show you that, well, why not just have a general population? Why not just have a regular public tournament? Why? Because maybe women don't want to join the tournaments. Maybe the women aren't just good enough to make it in those tournaments. I don't know what the reason is, but you're obviously understanding that there's a difference because you're having a tournament just for one gender. It just doesn't make any sense. If everybody's equal and everybody's the same, then why are you separating people based on gender for a specific tournament?
Well,
it just doesn't.
The crazy thing is, there in the more left-leaning places, there used to be what they called a feminist. Feminists were not Republicans. Feminists were not conservatives back in the day. Feminist was considered to be a liberal feminist, right? And now feminists almost have to team up with the people that are more conservative just to say, you know what, if I'm a woman, I want to compete with other women. And because you look at how many things are being taken over by transgender people, and where in a women's only thing, you've got the top person now is constantly going to someone who wasn't genetically a female.
Yeah, Primetime Stein. Alex Stein. I'd be just ruining it all.
I'd be pissed. You know what I'm saying? I'd be pissed as a female if I was a feminist saying I want representation. Is that representation?
No,
absolutely not. You got men coming in and taking it over again.
You know how you really be pissed if you're a father and you've got a daughter that's competing in a high school or a college swim
or
team,
college.
You've got a guy with a penis that is beating records by 60 seconds in a swimming pool, and nobody's got the audacity to say this is absolutely ridiculous. That's when you'd really be pissed. And that is exactly what's going on. There was a swimmer here. I don't remember her name, Riley something. She was whatever that big scandal was over the college swimming thing where that one guy literally beat the record by like 40 seconds. She was here at speaking at the college here last week. I didn't have a chance to go to it, but she is now she's had to advocate for not allowing transgender individuals or people that identify as a different gender in fishing in these swimming tournaments because it's completely ruined female sports. Completely ruined female sports.
Well, and I see this because like I am no longer near at a place where I play hockey once, twice a week. And I'm no longer at the speed to where I can even say I'm close to a professional, NHL player. But you know what I do is I have played in the past year with women that are on the professional USA hockey Olympic team. They've played in my league. I've skated against them. And guess what? I keep up with those people just fine. And I promise you, if anybody from the men's Olympic team came in and jumped onto our rink, they would dominate the whole rink by themselves. There is a huge difference. The best women in the country are ones that I'm playing alongside. The best men in the country, there would be no chance. And so that, there's just a huge difference. People don't realize it until you set them side by side. And how about you have them scrimmage? Or you have the lady in who was fighting in MMA and got her face beat in.
I disagree with your premise. People do realize it, but there's this
but you're not allowed to say
thing.
it.
Well, exactly. That's the thing. People, no, I don't genuinely believe that people are out and about and going, yeah, there's no difference between men and women. They're exact. I don't think that besides the most.
But it's like, it's the emperor's no clothes thing, though. You're not allowed to say it out loud.
Yeah, exactly. But nobody honestly believes that there's no difference. I mean, nobody actually believes that. Even the most progressive people in the world know that there is a difference there. So, nevertheless, Riot's doing this. Good for them. Good for women in video games. Good for whatever. But there's just no interest. I mean, you've got a tournament that's been published for 30 days now, and they don't even have enough participants for it to even play out at its current thing. Yeah. There's only 55 registrants in a 65
it's because you're trying to force
man
it.
Tournament. But yeah,
if females wanted to compete and there was enough females who were saying, hey, we'd like a place where it's more of a level playing field for us, they would, if they were beating down the doors because they didn't like playing in these tournaments, they would show up and they'd create another tournament for them. But you're trying to say, oh, well, we want women playing these games, so we're going to create all these fake incentives and everything. There's just not the interest. I mean, STEM, trying to get them into programming. Most women don't appreciate programming as much. Maybe over time that's going to change, but guess what? Up to this point, it's pretty forced. There are women that program, but the majority of women don't want to. And is there anything wrong with that? No. There's a lot of men who don't enjoy programming either.
See, that's it. If somebody doesn't want to do it, it's because of a inherent bias or sexism or misogyny, and it's just the reality of maybe it's just more interesting to men just have more. Maybe women just really don't care to spend their entire day sitting in front of a computer screen and clicking away on a keyboard. Maybe they just don't find that satisfying when a lot of men do. I don't know. Crazy take, I guess.
Okay, now here's something else coming out of Riot. Can we talk about this really quickly? They're trying to combat toxicity in video games. And of course, this is China talking, and they're collaborating with Ubisoft to do this, and they're using AI to detect toxic behavior and to curb it through this AI system. So, like, they have what they call zero harm in comms, where if there's something being said that you find offensive or you don't want to hear, they'll mute it for you, so you don't have to hear it.
God, I hope they don't introduce this into Call of Duty. My account would immediately
be a bunch of silence.
Yeah, I mean, my whole account would be blown out. Yeah, that would not be good at all. The pregame lobbies and postgame lobbies in Call of Duty. I mean, good Lord. With the vitriolic nature and the terrible language that I have heard playing that game over the past couple of weeks compares to nothing else on the internet. It's amazing.
And so this is going to be implemented into League of Legends, voice chat, Valorant, things like that. And what it's supposed to do, it says, Riot is investing in AI systems to automatically detect harmful behavior and foster more positive communities across all their games.
Right.
It'll be really interesting to see how this works out for them. It's supposed to preemptive moderation tools to detect and mitigate disruptive behavior in games.
I'm sure it will. This will work out great.
As it always does. And then one more thing, this is just kind of a little bit of a toss in. So League of Legends, there's another video game called something Bang Bang. It's like a League of Legends type of clone here in the United States on mobile. I don't remember. I only remember the Bang Bang part.
It's called something Bang Bang.
Yeah, it's like something Bang Bang. It's like a Chinese.
Is it a Chinese game or an American game?
It's an American game made in China, though. It's Mobile Legends Bang Bang. There we go. Oh, okay. Mobile Legends Bang Bang. I couldn't remember the first two words. But Mobile Legends Bang Bang. And League of Legends or Riot wanted to sue them because it's so much like League of Legends. Well, the problem
the text is literally like League of Legends. I mean, look at this. It's literally their whole
I know.
And everything. Wow.
They almost copied it. But the problem is this company is Moonton, based out of China, right? Uh-huh. Where's Riot now based out of?
China.
Oh, and how do Chinese laws go when it comes to copyright?
They love stealing of intellectual property.
Exactly. So you've got a Chinese company complaining about another Chinese company now about copyright in the United States, which is called calling the kettle black. And you know what our judge here decided to say is take it to China.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. Good luck. Yeah. All right. Okay. I'll do that. I'll get right on that.
Riot's got to be pissed because they're like, all right, we'll take your case to China because you're two China-based companies trying to fight it out in American court.
It makes zero
Riot
sense.
used to be a United States company, but you're now owned by a company in China. So they're going to take it to China. What do you think is going to happen? Absolutely nothing, because this happens every day in China.
Where was this?
Just because we're based out of America, you're now mad.
Where's this judge? What district court was this in?
Let me see. U.S. judge.
Yeah, it doesn't say. I'd be curious to see where, what district court this was fought in, because that's a great thing.
California court. This was a California court that did this.
Yeah, take it. Yeah, resolve it in the country in which you both are incorporated in your ownership. Is why the hell are you fighting this out here in the U.S.? That's great. Well, there you go. That is the latest in China news, as was said by a former president here on an Infection podcast. Brian, we've been talking. We covered a story back in September of last year, and we've had a couple of follow-ups here and there about an individual who was the CEO of Tripwire. His name is John Gibson. And he was forced to resign from the company that he helped found back nearly 20 years ago. 2005 is when he founded him and some of his colleagues founded Tripwire Interactive, which is a video game developer and publisher. And he was ousted from his own company in September of last year because of a tweet that he put out in support of a Texas law that banned abortion. And we covered it when it happened. We've covered a few follow-ups since then, but of course it has been largely radio silent in the video game sphere because it doesn't fit some narratives of these gaming blogs like Kotaku and all these other jackasses that write for these publications. Well, John Gibson not only has gotten some spotlight, Brian, he was seen on the most watched, highest rated cable news show this past week and did a full sit down with Tucker Carlson on the Fox News channel, which again, you don't have to like Tucker Carlson, but he has tens of millions of viewers a day and has an incredible amount of influence in this sphere. So I want to play two quick clips from this. The full episode came out today. This is how Tucker set up the situation middle of last week when this aired. Take a listen.
John Gibson was the CEO of Tripwire, a video game company, a very famous video game developer. Last year, he tweeted this, and this is the whole tweet, quote, "Proud of the U.S. Supreme Court affirming the Texas law banning abortion for babies with a heartbeat. As an entertainer, I don't get political often. Yet with so many vocal peers on the other side of the issue, I felt it was important to go on the record as a pro-life game developer." That was it. He didn't threaten anyone. He didn't even attack anyone. He just said what he believed. Well, for tweeting that, he lost his job. The company that he started and was majority owner of, or had the largest ownership stake in, and then the media decided to destroy him personally. Unbelievable experience. We spoke to John Gibson at length for an hour on Tucker Carlson today about it. Here's part of the conversation.
So before we get into that part of the conversation, he mentioned in John Gibson's tweet he put out that, in an industry, and we know this very well, that is so far to the left and so progressive that you share an opinion like, I'm glad a court made a decision, a legal decision, and you are ousted from your own company.
Yeah.
Just exactly. Insanity.
It wasn't even super controversial what he said.
No, that was it.
It's an opinion of about half of the United States. But in the tech market, for some reason, you're not allowed to have that half of opinion.
Yeah,
and
pretty
crazy. I see it in my industry all the time. That's one reason I didn't want to pursue going forward with Google, was this exact type of thing. I just knew that I would constantly be silenced and not be able to say a single thing when I was there about my opinion about almost anything. And I didn't feel like constantly feeling like I was just ready to be pounced on by so many people that are incredibly vocal, putting up signs, put pictures of them at protests or at marches or everything else, pictures in their cubicles of all these things. Yet if you even just say, well, I have a slightly different opinion, you see what happened to this man. They jumped and pounced and got him fired for legitimately no reason. There was nothing in there that was controversial other than saying, I agree with the law that Texas passed. It was a law that was enacted, that a whole state passed.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you're saying you're not allowed to work here because you agree with what a whole state passed as a law, and plenty of other states have as well.
Listen to what he described. It's pretty eye-opening.
I call it social terrorism.
Yes.
It is an effort to use fear and intimidation to cause people to change, either hide or pretend that they're not what they are really, so that they can keep their jobs, that they can keep their status. And I just think that's just a terrible thing for the world.
He's talking, and he uses, it's often been, the term has often been coined as cancel culture. He's got this phrase, and Tucker even mentioned, I'm stealing this phrase because it's great, and he called it exactly what it is: social terrorism. We've talked about this in the video game industry with some of these union groups, Brian, that I think fit perfectly into this category of social terrorism.
They will say you are a villain. You are a violent person because of your words. I hate it when they say words are violence, because that's their excuse to hurt you. The techniques that they're using are the same ones that were used in Nazi Germany back in the day. How do you think they got all these people that is not one thing I can tell you is not every German was bad back then, back in the 1930s. I bet you there were a lot of Germans that didn't agree with that. But you know what? They were cowed into following along because of the same social terrorism that they felt. If they didn't say, "Oh, I agree with that," they would be attacked. They would lose their jobs. They would be physically attacked. They could be then sent to jails. There's people that have been sent to jail for these opinions nowadays in certain places.
Now, this is the first time that I believe this is the first interview that John Gibson has done since this. We reached out to him back last year, and it was right after he got fired, and obviously he didn't want to talk about it, and it's kind of stupid on my part to reach out when I did, but nevertheless, we did. And you talk about this, you need to go along and get along with this. If you haven't watched this interview yet, by the way, the full episode came out today. I've got it on my list to watch. Listen at what he describes the process and how this went down, and somebody that was a high up at the company, a friend of his, and how this was handled. This is just so unbelievably disturbing. Listen to this.
And then the people the other people that agreed, they're afraid to speak up. They don't want to be next. I had one of the other owners of the company, politically were very, very aligned. He thinks cancel culture is bad. He thinks abortion's bad. And he said, yeah, I don't want to be canceled next.
How heartbreaking was that? I mean, these are your friends. You created the company with them. You worked with them for 20 years, and to see them participate in this must have just destroyed you.
Tucker, words can hardly convey how crushed I was. Everyone that works puts a little bit of themselves into something, or maybe a lot.
Yeah.
When you're doing something that like this, that was just a passion, something you used to do for free, and you just absolutely love it, and it's, you spent 20 years, 25 of years of your life crafting the skill set, and you're at the top of your game, and you love what you do every day. You just love coming into work and making people happy. And we were making, sure, millions of fans happy, but also the company would take 10% of our profits and divide it up amongst the employees. And there was a lot of profit. And people were going out and buying cars and houses. And I would see people coming into work smiling and happy. And I just loved having a job where I got to make not just the public happy, but the employees happy. And to have that all destroyed, to feel like, well, I shared something with my wife. I'll tell you what I said to her. I said, I said, I just want to die.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to live in a world that's this unjust.
I agree.
And yeah, I got depressed. I got, of course, angry, suicidal, not wanting to leave the house. Yeah, it destroyed me. And I have lived through 13 months of hell.
What a fucking disgrace. I mean, I don't know what else. I don't know what else you say, Brian. And him getting us ousted from his own company was cheered on by these scumbags on the left. This was a great thing for them to hear the emotion from this guy. And guess what, Brian? They probably wanted him to kill himself. They would have cheered if he had killed himself, because this is how the left operates. This is what they do. Yeah. These people are the scum of the earth. They will tear down and destroy anything that they can and anybody that they can for them to have a moral justification that they are right in something and you are wrong. To hell with you, your company, your family, your life. Fuck it. I don't care. I agree with abortion. You disagree with it. And now you get to lose your company, and I hope you kill yourself. That is the justification from the left. And we saw those comments back last year when this happened. This is a fucking disgrace. Let's just call it what it is. I don't know.
And this is normal now. That's the problem.
Yes!
Is this has become normal. This type of attitude where you have so many people jumping on and saying, "Oh yeah, end that guy's career," for having an opinion that's slightly different. You know how many opinions I hear from people in my area that are different than what I have? And you know what I don't do? I don't jump down their throats and get mad at them for it. I just realize that they have a different opinion than I do, and maybe they have a different reason for that opinion than I do. And if they want to talk about it, I'll give them the reasons that I have my opinion. But you know what? I don't feel like that ability comes up anymore. They don't want to hear why you have your opinion. They just don't like the fact that you don't have their opinion. That's all they care about.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I was actually pleasantly surprised with I went and looked, of course, PC Gamer, by the way, is and we've been critical of them, but PC Gamer is the only one that wrote an article about this. And as John Gibson put out on his Twitter account, he let me see if I can find it real quick. He put out on his Twitter, late last week, whenever this 6-minute clip aired, that, hey, Kotaku, hey, PC Gamer, hey, IGN, hey, Games Radar, some big gaming-related news dropping this week. You're going to cover it, or did I miss it? I mean, it's not every day that a game developer appears on the biggest cable show in the nation. That's surely newsworthy, right? Nobody besides PC Gamer has done anything in regards to it, which you wouldn't expect from the progressive leftist fucks that work over at Kotaku, or anybody else at any of these other companies. But I was pleasantly surprised with the comments here on Facebook, on PC Gamer's Facebook post, because there's a lot of folks that just say that this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on. And they talk about this stuff and how it's having an opinion, being pro-life is not something that's controversial. Yet it's enough to get you ousted from a company that you own. And to hear that his friend, somebody that he co-founded the company with, didn't have enough balls to step up and support his friend and stand by his friend, goes to show you that guy's also a piece of shit. And he's, he can claim to be a conservative, because he even said, "Oh, my friend, we align politically." No, you don't. No, you don't. Your friend is a sheep. He's going to claim that he has all these values, but he's not willing to fight for them. He's not willing to stand up for them. You were willing to stand up for them, and you got shipped down the river in a boat by yourself. Brian, watching this, and I haven't seen the full thing yet, and I specifically didn't watch it before the show today because I knew how much it would piss me off. And even watching those 3-minute clips has just got me outraged. It is so disturbing to watch this stuff. It's so
that's the problem.
Disturbing.
Fear is a tool of the left. It is a tool that they use, and they try to wield it through these organizations by using pressure on organizations to fire people, to affect people's lives purely for opinions. And then they use terms to try to create an enhanced sense of fear in it by the words or violence, where then they can say, you are violent, you're being violent towards me, you are using hate speech. They use these elevated terms that have nothing to do with actually being talked about, where what you should be able to do is sit down and have a conversation of, here's how I feel, how do you feel about it? Let's discuss why we have such different opinions on the matter. That does not happen in today's environment, and that's an environment they have created. The not wanting to have debates, having people come to colleges just to have discussions, and they'll sit there and say, you're not allowing you to speak, rather than going and listening to an alternate opinion to either reinforce yours or to slightly change your own opinion. Because that's what it should do. Sometimes when I go hear people and when they're speaking nonsense, it reinforces my opinion. Like when I watch these things happen, when we see it play out, it reinforces my opinion of why I believe the way I do. Because I feel like what we're standing for is right. And it's actually helping people and it's protecting people. And what they're standing is attacking people, is belittling people, trying to make people have less value. When you say, what I tell my boys is, when you have to tear someone else down to make yourself feel like you're more lifted up, that's the wrong thing. You know, when you're lifting those up around you, that's because you are above them. You're pulling them up, right? Rather than tearing people down. Because if you're tearing people down, you really are no better than them. And I think this is a perfect example of that. They had to tear him down because he was above them. When it, you know, in what he believed, in his stance, he had a reason for what he believed, and it wasn't all hyperbole. It wasn't all just, you know, talk.
The craziest thing about it
everywhere
is it's not even really a stance. He literally just said, I support a law that was upheld by a court. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's not like he went on some racially charged diatribe on Twitter or some, you know, profanity laden, you know, tweet storm where he was calling groups this or that or using any sort of vulgar language or anything. I mean, literally simply supporting a law. And, you know, and still to this day, looking at some of the comments on the Facebook, PC Gamers Facebook and their Twitter account, some people are still saying, oh yeah, this is good. This is action. Actions have consequences, Brian. And his actions have consequences. That's not what the phrase
what actions did he have.
But see, that's the thing is, and that's where you know that they're just full of it, because this was not an action. There was no action here. It was simply a comment. Phrasing has consequences. No, it doesn't. And again, if your phrase is attacking a group, if your phrase is breaking down people or actively advocating for something against them, maybe. But when it's just a law, a state Supreme Court just upheld a law, that's a good thing. I just fail to comprehend how that meets the barrier of any of these things that they claim. And of course, you've got these liberal jackasses commenting, oh, this is capitalism. And now it's funny because this is what capitalism looks like. That is not capitalism. So having a company be pressured by left-wing activists to fire somebody is not capitalism. No,
it's communism pushing into it. Why do you think these things are coming from these companies that are communist-owned companies, like Riot, pressuring these things to happen? I mean, that's why we kind of let off with that, because these companies that keep saying all these terms and pushing all these things, their backings are communist China. They're not American-made companies backing all this stuff. But you know what? They're realizing they're trying to tear down our society because they're trying to weaken us, and we're allowing it to happen. We're allowing China to come in and influence us in these ways to make it to where we're fighting each other so that we're not looking at what they're doing to our country.
You want to know another great example of this, and I'm glad you just brought that up about China. I've been watching the World Cup this past couple days, and it's taking place in Qatar. And Qatar is a very interesting country politically. It is a Muslim country. Women have no rights. It is, if you speak out against it, they will literally throw you in jail and kill you. Or in the case of Qatar, they advocate for raping you first so that you don't go to heaven, because apparently if you get raped, you don't go to heaven in Muslim culture. That's the kind of culture we're talking about. Yet during the World Cup that's going on, Brian, there are commercials airing about how Qatar is leading the nation in this, and you know, innovations coming forward and all of this stuff. And it's like, holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
This is insane. You were literally throwing women in jail for not wearing a hijab in public. And then you're going to advocate and buy advertising on Fox Sports, buy advertising about how you're leading a national trend or a national or a worldwide trend. It is just crazy.
It's hypocrisy.
Crazy. Yeah.
Well, and that's just the thing is they're trying to create this divide. Now, let's talk really quick. Do you mind if we jump over to another topic here really quick that I think leads into this?
Sure.
Let's talk about something that Bungie is doing. Bungie is now owned by PlayStation, so it's not all 100% China, but they now are selling a pin in there that goes 100% of the sales are being donated to a transgender charity for that month.
Oh.
Now this is definitely a politicized issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
One side versus the other. Is there any fear from them posting this on their Twitter of any backlash from conservatives?
No, because why would there be?
Yeah, because we say
cares?
you do your thing,
Yeah,
but
I'm just
this
not going to buy
right
it.
here is way more controversial when it comes down to it because of the things that are happening in that community right now.
Yeah.
Then I would say someone saying, you know what, I happen to be a pro-life game developer.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that end of sentence, right?
Oh my! I'm so
was end of
hurt
sentence.
by Bungie. Oh my God! Bungie is releasing a pin that supports. Oh God! I'm gonna have to advocate for violence again. It's just no. Of course not. Why would I? I don't care. Do what you want to do. It doesn't affect me.
And that's the thing. It's like that's the difference, and that's just pointing out the hypocrisy of it. One who's saying we want diversity. You say you want diversity, but you try to repress diversity. Diversity of thought is still diversity, right? This guy had a diversity of thought. He has a different opinion than you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not
he
even
has
diversity of thought, though. But hold on.
thought.
It's not even diversity of thought. It's not even a fringe opinion. I inherently disagree with you,
Well,
Brian.
no.
It's not diversity.
But I'm saying just having people having different opinions from one another.
Okay. Yes.
That's what I mean by diversity of thought. It's not diverse in that it's different than what's normal, right?
Yeah.
It's diverse, and then there's one opinion and there's another. They don't want you to be able to have the one opinion versus the other. They only want one opinion. This is it. They want this and nothing else. And that's the problem. Only allowing one opinion is not what is not diversity. You claim all day you want diversity, but you don't. You only want one. And you want to know, I keep going back to it, Nazi Germany, what did they want? They wanted one race. One. They didn't like diversity. You then say we're Antifa and you claim that you're anti-fascist, but everything that you follow along with ends up lining perfectly to the last major set of fascists we had in this world. Everything lines right up to it. Yet you claim all you do, and this is what they did as well, is you change the words. You repeat a lie enough times to where it then no longer becomes a lie is the mentality. And you say you want diversity and you use all these terms, words of violence, to try to claim the other side are all the things that you are. If you truly believed in liberalism, then you would be liberal in your thought and you would be liberal in acceptance. But you are not. You're the opposite of liberal. And it's crazy is they've turned around and just, I don't care what you say. What I say to my boys is, I don't care what you say. It's what you do that matters to me. You could say everything to my face one way all day long, but when you turn around and do the opposite, that's what you truly believe. And they use all these words and put all these phrases up there and put all these, here's what I believe. And they say that, but then their actions are all, they are the true communism. They are the true, just repressive regime that they claim that they fight against. When there's the opposite. That's why I wanted to point it out. How much uproar did you hear about Bungie? How many boycotts did you hear about Bungie? Because they posted something that is definitely one side of the aisle, one very staunch opinion that's counter to, I'd say, at least half of America. You didn't hear one word because the true sign that accepts a side that accepts diversity is the opposite side of the one that claims that they are it. And that's just crazy to me. It's frustrating.
Very well said. Very frustrating. And to really bring it all home, we go back to something that we've covered a lot on this program over the last couple of years. what inherently happens with this stuff, Brian, is that these companies will fail. You can, and this is the problem with this. And I know we're way off on the politicals thing at this point, but it is what it is. It's got to be discussed. It really does, especially because bringing it back here to something in the video game industry specifically. You're always going to be up against the mob. You can't appease the mob. If there's anything that I've learned over the last couple of years in my day job, which is now covering politics for a living, it's what I get paid to do. If it's some of the political activism that I do, it's that you can never appease the mob. They tell you to do A, B, and C. You do A, B, and C, and then they tell you to do X, Y, Z. And then you do X, Y, Z, and they tell you to do 1, 2, 3. And then you do 1, 2, 3, and then it's do 8, 9, 10. It never ends. It's
they don't have a moral
ratcheting
compass. That's the problem. It's about control. It's not about I want you to do what I feel is right. It's I want you to do what I want you to do. So if you start doing what they want, and they just have to change it because they want to be controlling you. They want to know that they control you, and that's what they do with these companies. It's not that, oh, I want you to believe, I want to convince you that I'm right. No, I want to make you do what I want you to do. It's about control, just like China. Do you think China really cares? It's about making people controlled. It's not about the betterment of their citizens. I mean, if you went over there, my parents went over there, all these things are not about bettering the lives of their citizens. It's about controlling them. And that's what this comes down to the core. It's about control.
Well, and the problem with what you just described and what I just described is that it never ends. And when it never ends, eventually you find yourself in the bullseye. And that's what we've seen with a lot of these companies. Not necessarily, we haven't seen it in the video game industry yet, at least not that I'm aware of. But you've seen it in other companies where the once saviors and heroes of the left eventually find themselves in the crosshairs because you can only do so much to appease the mob before you say, huh? That's ridiculous. And then all of the good deeds that you've done, all of the things that you've done for them to match their demands and meet whatever they claim is just thrown out the window. It doesn't matter, Brian. It's not worth anything to them. And that is and what that causes is implosion. You can't survive this. When you allow, it's the old adage of allowing the crazies to run the asylum. And when you allow that to happen, the jail falls apart. And I am very concerned as a video gamer, as somebody that enjoys playing video games, as somebody that has talked about video games in one way, shape, or form on a podcast going back to 2011. I was like 13 or 14 years old. I love the video game industry, Brian, and I can see right in front of me right now that it is on the precipice of a collapse because of these people. They are going to destroy the industry that I love for their moral justification.
I mean, Amazon's laying off thousands of employees. Who would think that was going to happen, right? Amazon owns Twitch. Amazon, I saw a thing where their Alexa product is losing, I think is on track to lose like $10 billion this year. Amazon's not doing so good, and they're the kings of diversity. They're the ones who have pushed it so much to where we have to, we are amazed every day that we're still here on this platform right now, right? I think that the corruption and all of this is not about improving the workforce, it's not about improving the company's standing, and it comes down to it ends up hurting the company in the long run. And just look at the corruption that's accepted from this side. I mean, look at Black Lives Matter and what that ended up being. That was a huge scheme, money-making scheme for people that were running it. Look at this FTX thing that we've talked about in the last couple of weeks. That was a disaster to funnel. They were both to funnel money to the Democrats during elections. Don't people realize that? Black Lives Matter was funneling a percentage of all the funds they brought in towards Democrats, and then they allowed the people at the top to take a certain percentage of it. That was the scheme they did, and they're still not being held to account for it, but it's very obvious with the mansions and things they purchased and the funds that they diverted to their friends. And then you got the same thing with FTX, who did the exact same thing. It's their playbook, yet we're not allowed to say, hey, look, they're doing something illegal. Isn't that wrong? Oh, you're hateful. FTX is a Bitcoin thing, so we can get away with it a little bit more to say, hey, Look at this guy. He stole a ton of money from people to give it to the Democrats. It's pretty obvious. Can you see it? Yeah, there's no outrage from their end. They're not pissed about it.
No.
Did you hear any of them yelling about Black Lives Matter or about FTX being a thing that stole money from a lot of people or took money under fake terms? We had on here, we had this exact same thing happen here on Twitch where they were promoting Black Lives Matter. Do people realize that most of their money went into the pockets of the people running the company? And was
for
just
$16 million mansions out in California. Yeah.
Yeah. Do people realize that all these companies that were pushing this on you, that they were pressuring you to, if you're a good person, you're going to give money to this, realizing it went to a political thing and then also to people to line their own pockets. Went to nowhere near helping people that are African American or black.
It's a really sad state of affairs that we're in. I feel terrible for John. I'm glad he was able to get his voice and his message out on such a huge platform. I'm just so concerned about the future of this whole video game industry and this path that we're heading down because it's so encompassing of everything. So the full episode is out. It's on Fox Nation. There's clips of it that are up on YouTube. It's on the show called Tucker Carlson Today, and it's up on their platform there. So I can't wait to watch it after we get off the air here tonight. And it's a really Brian, I am so disappointed that this program has had to is having to cover things like this, that we're having to spend our show talking about this in the video game industry because nobody else is, and it is just being
look
seen
at how much
as
it's affecting our
normal.
industry.
It's destroying the industry. It's more than just affecting. It is absolutely destroying an industry that, again, offers diverse opinions and bridges barriers and closes gaps between people based on race and gender and age and sex and location. Video games are a great uniter, Brian. Whether you're the wealthiest of the wealthy or the poorest of the poor, you can play video games and have a great time. And to see that an industry like this is being weaponized by the progressive left is just so unbelievably disconcerting. John Gibson is not the first. He will not be the last. But I'm glad that the folks over at Fox were able to get connected with him.
This whole thing is what took down H1Z1, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that the person who had the vision behind the game for the podcast, the product that our podcast was founded on, had an opinion that people didn't like, and they ran him out of the company rather than listening to his opinion and being understanding of, hey, this guy, his family was being threatened. Maybe he has the right to be a little bit frustrated about it. Maybe we should hold to account the people that are threatening his family rather than the person who's saying, hey, quit threatening my family.
Yeah, stop threatening to blow up a plane that I'm on.
Yeah, I mean, they're being terrorists. Exactly like he said, social terrorists. That's what they were being. And he's the one who got fired for it. And guess what? It destroyed that whole company. Sony Online Entertainment, then moving on to Daybreak. Your company is nothing now. And do you know why? It's because you guys jumped on the social bandwagon to sit there and attack people, even when they're in the right, and it destroyed your company, and you all lost your jobs because of it. Are you happy? That you guys brought that on yourselves for being this ignorant and willing to attack someone who had the right to stand up for themselves and to say, hey, you don't have the right to attack my family. You don't have the right to threaten me. And he said something that was common sense, just like Gibson did. Totally common sense, an opinion he should allowed to have. And they ran him out, and it destroyed that whole company, destroyed the company, the game that we really enjoyed and loved, and brought our whole community together. Congratulations, you guys did that to yourselves. People should, we did it, Patrick. We saved the city, exactly.
As it's burning down behind them.
And the problem is they will never look back in introspection and realize that what they have done has ruined what they love. And they're doing the same thing over again. And they're not going to ever look at themselves enough or look at what their history is to realize they're going down the same path that are going to destroy the game industry that they love. If you love video games, stand up for it. Stand up for diversity, because what made games so fun in the past was the diversity of it. The escape from reality, the thing that was not black and white, right? That's what made games fun. And now they're trying to take all that enjoyment out of it and make everything evil, either too edgy, too racist, too everything else, rather than just being able to escape reality and play. And not worrying about, is someone going to say something that offends me? Get over it.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you this right now. I am waiting with bated breath to see what the next Grand Theft Auto looks like. And I know that might sound like
I'm afraid they've ruined it.
Well, and that's exactly what my point. I know that sounds like a completely different conversation, but you're looking at a world in which Grand Theft Auto came out in 2012, I think. 2012 was
very
a
different time.
Long time ago, and a very different time from where we are today. Meatball for You says they don't realize that they're just working for the big business and the monopolies. Wokeness is the ideology of the big dogs, and they're weaponizing it against smaller businesses. Absolutely. And it will eventually lead, I think, to the demise of the whole industry, which really sucks. Fortunately, though,
what I'm scared. Well, what I'm going to say is all the people that are then going to say, oh, GTA sucks now, and they're all these left-wing people saying, oh, it was so much better before. Well, congratulations, you got what you wanted. You once again brought that onto yourselves. You made the game no longer fun. GTA, I don't agree with everything they say, but that's not the point. They say edgy things to entertain you. They say things that make you go, what? Look at all the things that are in Grand Theft Auto 5.
Here's a hot take,
ridiculous.
I don't think you don't have to disagree. You don't have to agree or disagree with what they do. It's a freaking video game. I mean, this is not some. Yeah. It's not a moral platform to have an opinion on. It's a freaking video game. I mean, it's a television show. It's a movie. It's not reality. I mean, it's everybody's got to have this moral opinion about something, and you just don't need to. So, this is probably the most political we've ever been in a single show, but I think the times called for it, and I hope. Now that this is, Brian, we've been talking about a story like this for over a year now, but now that it is the general masses that have seen it, and we'll see it over the next couple of weeks, hopefully, maybe this will bring forward some sort of renaissance in the video game industry, in which there are some of these developers that are willing to stand up and say, you know what, enough of this bullshit. This is what we're going to do, and if you don't like it, go pound sand and go play something else. But piss off and leave us alone.
And that's the thing. We're repeating history. Falcon, he brings up, burn all the books that we don't agree with. People don't realize that's one of the first things the Nazis did. All the books that had things that they didn't like, they burned them in the streets. And the same thing's happening. There was a night, was it Fahrenheit, not the one, the liberal
9/11?
movie. No, not that one. Fahrenheit 401 or whatever.
411.
There's an old book there's an old book or movie. It was a book, but it was more of a liberal book talking about freedom of thought and people in the old days burning books and how that was a bad thing. 451. But now you've got them Fahrenheit 451, and it was about burning books and about them trying to control thought. And it was more, from what I remember, more of as Ray Bradbury, kind of a liberal type of an idea of a book. But it was a warning of trying to control thought like this, but we're doing it. You don't have to burn a book in the streets. When you then say you're not allowed to type this on the internet, you're not allowed to say this on the internet, you're not allowed to have this opinion, that is the same as burning books. That's what that's about, is what we're doing digitally today on the internet. Silencing opinion, not allowing to have freedom of diversity of thought. That's what this is about. Getting a book and reading something that doesn't go along with exactly what you believe right now.
Exactly. We'll have the links to the only outlet that actually published something, PC Gamer, about it. We'll have a link to the YouTube video, a link to the full interview on Tucker Carlson show, and a link to John's Twitter, which you should totally give a follow to as well. We'll have all of those on our website, infectionpodcast.com. All right, Brian, we are over time on this program here for this Tuesday night. Can you tell folks where they can find you online? You're now a hot, active Twitter user under Elon's control.
Oh, I know. Hey, yeah. At least I'm reading it now. Yeah. If you want to find me, you can get me at Boise Computer on Twitter, or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, Truth Social. Or if you want to check out my blog, biteoftech.com. If you want to go check out our website, go to infectionpodcast.com and make sure you go to the upper right-hand side and join our server on Discord. Maybe there's an article or a video or something that you think would be relevant for our show next week. Just toss a link to that in our news channel there. If you want to get a hold of us, that's the perfect place to do that. Also, if you want to go join one of our ARC servers, we've got 11 of those going. And we got a Conan Exile server running on there. Lots of different things to do over your holiday weekend. If you want to watch the show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube. And, of course, if you want to listen to the show, you can do that through the lower right through all the podcast forums. We've got a lot of different platforms to listen to. That is not recorded or broadcast live through those. We do record it and upload it after the fact, so you have to wait for the show to be done before you can listen to it. But if you've done that, that means that the show notes for that particular episode have been uploaded as well. So you can jump to that episode show notes. We've got a video and audio player built into that, and then links for everything that we discussed. So maybe you want to go check out that full-length video that we were talking about. The link will be in there in the show notes for this particular episode and everything that we referred to through the live show. If you want to support us, you can go to the support option up top or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, sir, Brian. Thank you very much to all of to you and to all of our U.S. Listeners and viewers. Happy Thanksgiving, which of course you know is a terrible, awful holiday that you will hear over the next 2 or 3 days is a terrible holiday that we shouldn't celebrate. But what we'll say is have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with your friends and family. Yep. And Brian, thank you as always, and we will see you next Tuesday.
I will see you later.
Alrighty, folks, that's going to do it. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my daily political antics, which includes my 3-hour-a-day radio show, Wilmington's Morning News. We get into some pretty heavy political topics like we did today on a daily basis. You can check that out by visiting nickcraig.com. If you missed any portion of this show or want to check out our show notes, you can do all of that by visiting our website, which is infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.